If someone came to me with this problem and said, hey, look, I have this dental office and I have A, B, and C players and my C players are underperforming. What do I do? And I can't hire anybody, right? I can't find anybody to bring into the job. My answer would be go back, time travel 5 years back, start building an amazing culture. So that way people want to work there and make it so that everybody loves being there. So when people leave, it's very easy to find people. Welcome to another episode of Dental Riffs. My name is Gary Bird. I'm the CEO of SMC National. We provide predictable new patient flow for offices just like yours.
My name is Tanner Applegate. I am the CEO and founder of Unified Dental. We are a new up-and-coming SaaS platform to make your dental lives easier by bringing all of your different softwares that are fragmented all into one platform.
Ooh, I like that. I like the way you worded that this time. That was good. Good stuff. How's that been going? How's the growth of your company coming?
It's good. We're at a point where we've gotten enough product itself built. I mean, obviously there's a few features here and there that we're always adding on and building onto, but we're opening up the gates and kind of bringing on others that were interested. So that's always been good and exciting to see. So we're working through that right now. Hopefully nothing falls apart once we start putting more weight on the traction.
Yeah, that's awesome. I cannot wait to see. I have some juicy stuff for you today, and I want to jump into that. But do you want me to kick us off today, or do you want to go?
Before we go into it, I kind of want to hear. You've got an event coming up in the beginning of December, right? You got your dental marketing podcast. I mean, your dental marketing boot camp. So tell me, kind of how are things going for you? This is the first event put on by you and your company
ever.
What's it been like? Yes.
Okay. So putting on an event, super stressful. We have no idea what we're doing and way outside of our comfort zone. So something that I try to do every year, Tanner, is I try to find one thing to do a year that pushes me way outside of my comfort zone that I don't want to do, that I know that I need to do, but I don't want to do it. So starting Dental Marketing Theory, my other podcast, that was actually the thing last year. And I've already spun off 3 other podcasts off of that. Now it's just not a big deal. Now it's just part of my life. I do podcasts. Right. And so this year it's the boot camp. So I snuck it in right before the end of the year. And it's way outside of my comfort zone. It's a physical thing, which I'm more of a virtual person. Like if it was up to me, I would do everything virtually. And so doing a virtual thing is big. It's also a huge cost risk. We're looking at $150,000 right out of the pocket that you have to like put up front because you have to pay for the hotels. That's why these events bug you so much and say, did you sign up? Did you get your hotel? Did you sign up? Like the reason they do that is because they come out of pocket to secure those hotel blocks and and the food and all those kind of things. So right now,
huge gamble.
It was a huge gamble. And so right now we're at, I think we have almost 50 offices actually signed up. And then we have I think there will end up being about 20 SMC team members there. And then we have about 10 vendors. So I think we'll end up finishing with right around 100 people at the actual event. And then we have, so far it's going just as planned, a little bit behind what I planned, but just like really, really close. We're at, I wanted to finish either breaking even, a little bit positive was the goal. I think we'll end up finishing about negative $15,000, $20,000 in the hole for the event. So that's about where I'm looking at. And that's something I was comfortable with. And and then out of those, I think we'll end up with about 60, 70 offices because we're not all the way full yet. I think that of those about 70 offices, it looks about half of them are clients and the other half are not, somewhere in that ballpark. It might be 60-40, cool. But it's somewhere in there.
How much of this is taking your time versus your team's time?
Good question. So I work with this amazing person. Her name is Eve, and she is the make it real person. So I'm the make it up person in the relationship. So I was like, hey, we're doing a boot camp. And she's like, okay. And I was like, so here's what I wanted to kind of look like. What do we need to do? And she like literally planned the whole thing, put it all together, kept it under budget, figured out all the marketing, all that stuff. So she did a great job of that. And then our team is all a lot of our team's presenting. So they're pulling all that content together and that kind of stuff. Now, the cool part is they're just presenting on what their job is for the most part, or what they've done in the past in their job. So most of that is just a rehashing. Now, it is pushing some of them out of their comfort zones, though, because a lot of them haven't spoken before at an event, or haven't spoken a lot at events. So some of that is pushing them out of their comfort zones a little bit, which
is a huge win for you guys as well, right?
I think so.
Totally.
Well, here's the way I look at it is you're more likely to work with people that you know. So you're more likely to stay working with people that you know. So right there on those two notes alone, it's a win. Next year, I know it's going to go way better. We mistimed it. Like, we didn't put it at the right time of the year. I know that. We're going to change that next year when we're scheduling it. We put it too close to like Christmas with Christmas parties and stuff like that. So we're going to change when we're having it. And then we're also going to change like how we're presenting it, like who it's for and those kind of things. I worked with a company called Sweet Pea. Have you heard of them? They help put on events.
Heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're pretty connected. So this is actually really cool. If you're into the back end of dentistry, you're going to like this information. So Sweet Pea works with, like, they help Dykema put on their event. They started with DEO. They were putting on a lot of their events at the beginning as they started out, and then they put on a lot of Mark Costas's events. So they have like a ton of experience with putting on events. And so I went to them and was like, hey, can you guys kind of help me? And they were like, well, you're already knee deep in this, but we can review it. So they just charge you a little fee to review the whole plan. And they said the plan looked really good. They did make some really good suggestions, like with stuff that you just wouldn't know unless you ran an event about, like, don't do those appetizers. People don't end up eating these. These are the better ones. Like, just really like super event nuance type stuff. But they did an amazing job at helping us. I'll probably use them next year, to be honest, just because they make everything so much easier.
I always wondered, because your team has been like, everything that I've interacted with them, it felt like they had all their stuff together. So I'm like, what they do to like go down and buy like how to throw an event for dummies or something? Like, I was just wondering like how you all of a sudden like find out all these little things. So that's awesome, though.
It's Eve and then Sweet Pea. Yeah. So Eve did such a good job. She went out there, got some templates and things like that, but she did such a good job of planning everything. And then when Sweet Pea came in and overviewed everything, yeah, they did a good job. Like, in here, this is how we work, and this is why Eve works so well with me. I'm already like, here's what we're changing next year, and here's how we're making it better. So I'm already thinking about all the ways to make it better next year.
Oh yeah, I can see that from your entrepreneurial future thinking mind.
Yeah, I want to do more of these. I think there's an opportunity to do a couple of these and do bigger like boot camp stuff like this. So I'm once I get the hang of it and I don't lose my shorts on it, then we'll do it again.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm excited about it. 3 weeks away, man.
Yikes, yeah. My brain's not even thinking of it that way. I'm thinking like I get to have Thanksgiving and like 2 days off and watch football. So that's where my brain's at right now. Like, I'm looking forward to that. And then right off of that, it's like, all right, like a week and a half. And then we're off to the races. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It shows you got a good team around you.
Oh, yeah. I'm literally just going to show up and talk, and Eve's like, I just got done meeting with her for an hour. So amazing job. The team's absolutely killing it. I'm super excited. This is way out of our realm. We're a digital marketing company. You know what I mean? So,
right.
Well, we'll see. So it's a little bit too soon to be giving credit too, because we have to actually do it. So, okay. So I got two super juicy things.
Yeah. Let's
and do you guys, you want me to go first?
No. Yeah. I'm definitely interested in the juicy stuff, man. I don't want to push that off. So
I posted a video, and it went absolutely nuts today for me, for videos for mine inside the dental industry, right? It went nuts, tens of thousands of views and tons of negative comments, which a lot of my content doesn't get that much negative content, like negative responses. And basically what the hook on the video was, is if you work with a boss that makes you uncomfortable, then you probably have a good boss, or you probably have a good leader. And then I went in and explained it, but it's a short video. So I went in and explained it and said, hey, if a boss is like a trainer. So if you work with a trainer, you want that trainer to physically train you to get stronger, to get healthier, and it's going to be uncomfortable as they do that. But that's part of it. That's part of the process, and that's how you know it's working. And part of being a boss to somebody is pushing them to be somebody that they should be. And that's uncomfortable as you go through that process. And if you have a boss that doesn't push you to be that other version of yourself, what ends up happening is you end up not growing. You end up kind of hiding the mistakes that you make. You don't push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And that actually ends up creating a huge negative effect. And you end up hating your job. You end up hating what you're doing, et cetera, et cetera. And that compounds. And then if you're not growing, then the department can't grow, the company can't grow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how I presented it. But then everybody in the comments are like, you think that your boss should be making you feel uncomfortable. You're a dirtbag. You're a loser. Your boss shouldn't make you feel that way. Your boss should be empowering you. Da, 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 da. So I'm just like, okay, this obviously struck a nerve, right?
Right.
And there's a couple different ways you can frame this. You could even say, hey, if your boss isn't making you uncomfortable, they're not a good boss. Like, they're not pushing you to be who you should be. So anyways, I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. Maybe you can help ease my mind a little bit, or maybe you disagree with me.
I guess first and foremost, calling out what type of uncomfortable we're talking about, right? As far
so
as
let me
like
tell you
getting
one of the
yourself
comments.
out of
so let me tell you one of the comments. Let me tell you one of the comments in there. They said, if your boss is not taking pictures of your feet, then they're not a good boss.
That's exactly what I was thinking about when you first said uncomfortable. I was like, I don't know if sexual advances is ever something that we should be able to support. But you're saying taking your skill set and pushing them farther than what you're comfortable to execute on.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I just for the record, I'm anti-sexual harassment, and I would never make content around pro sexual harassment stuff.
Cool. So as far as that goes, no, I don't know. Honestly, Gary, this is a great conversation, great topic, because this is one that I've struggled with as a leader. I'm the type of leader that, like, I feel like the person doesn't appreciate me until they are no longer working with me, right? Like, I've had a lot of people come back to me and say, hey, my time working with you, I've had a huge amount of growth and opportunity, and I love and appreciate the way that you've pushed me out of my comfort zone. Okay, so I appreciate that. But in the moment, I had so many employees that were just like sick of me constantly pushing them to be better, that they're just like, why can't we just be grateful for what we have? And I've already struggled with that, right? It's like, how much of it is be who you are and learn to appreciate the strengths that you have right now versus be who you can be as long as you see yourself in a different light. So it's a very interesting topic. I mean, I imagine as a leader, you've had to go through some personal development in this too. Are you to the mindset right now where it's, if you're 100% not comfortable, then you're not working together well?
No, because I think there's like stages that you work through. So I'm just going to start with myself. So one thing for me is that I had to get comfortable of not always changing and adjusting things and things like that. So like for me, I had to slow down and say, okay, we're not going to grow this quarter. That's okay. Like, that's okay that happens. And here's why. But next quarter, we are going to grow. And so I've learned when to pull back and when to push. And so I think there's stages where it's like, okay, cool, we're laying foundation right now. Here's what we're doing. Let's rally around that. And then there's a gear switch of, okay, now we're going to push for this. And this is going to hurt. And we're going to push outside of your comfort zone. And we're actually working through that right now as a company, where we are working through a lot of our stuff that we're doing in 2022, that the year that we're in, the company didn't grow overall. Like it was kind of a stagnant year. We had some growth, but then we had some losses as well. And we were laying a lot of foundational things. And so we kind of anticipated that. So we didn't really harp on it. We didn't beat anybody up over it or anything like that. But now we're pushing for growth, and we're pushing in for growth at a time when a lot of people are contracting, which I think is a good thing. One thing that, and this is kind of a separate topic, but I think one thing that people miss a lot of times when they work for companies is that a lot of people are nervous about losing their job right now. A lot of people are nervous about losing their job. And so one way to protect your job is growth. And that's one thing that I'm talking with people about is like, guys, I don't know what's going to happen next month or next year with the economy, but I do know if we push to grow, and even if we maintain, if we grow a lot, but then we have some churn because people are not marketing as much or whatever, right? Whatever happens, I don't know what's going to happen. Then we're all safe. Like, we did our job. But if we don't grow and then we have, downturn, then all of our jobs are in jeopardy. And so I think that there's the correlation in that as well, is that like growth really protects you and the team and what you want to do as a company, where shrinking really hurts and puts people's jobs at risk.
Yeah, definitely. As a business, there's only two ways to remain profitable, right? Increase your revenue or decrease your expenses. And so I think that a lot of times right now, people jump straight to the decreasing expenses, right? Let's cut some, let's hedge some, make it so that we are a lot more secure. I think it's easier that way, right? It's easier to say, hey, I can for sure reduce these expenses, but I can't for sure increase revenue,
Which I
right? So
hate. Like for me, so being like a people first company, like I don't want to lay people off. That's a
right.
last ditch resort. Like I would rather just be less profitable, or I'd rather take a hit. But there does come a time when if the company shrinks by 25%, like you don't have a choice. It's either that or shut the doors on everybody. And so, yeah, I think sometimes people think about growth just through, it's like, cool, it's a fun entrepreneur thing, but there's also a level of protection built into it as well.
I'm curious, and I always love taking this out to a larger scope, right? One of the topics I did want to chat with you about was along these same lines, like Dentsply Sirona. They came back with their Q3 earnings and they had decreased like 20 to 30% compared to the same time last year, right? And then a couple of other companies had done the same, maybe not as much as Dentsply Sirona, but it was interesting to hear that even in dental, this stuff is happening. And so obviously, like if you look on the outside,
but those are dental supplies, right? So you're talking about dental supply companies,
right?
Yeah, which makes sense because expenses went up. So how do you manage your expenses? You order less, and that's like even in my house, right? Like if inflation's going up, it's like, do we really need to order the 3-year supply of trash bags from Amazon, or can we just get the smaller one? And
depends on, I guess, kind of how they order, right? I mean, if it's a direct correlation to how much you order in supplies to the dentistry that you're doing, right? Like it's a variable cost, right? It's directly correlated to the revenue coming in. So it was interesting for me to hear it go down. I think that they went through and broke it apart. Dentsply Sirona is so big, it's across multiple, right? They've got the technology side of it, they've got the supply side of it, et cetera. But to hear that it went down, though, to me, it was interesting because that usually is a direct correlation to revenue in dentistry. And I don't think necessarily
the amount of dentistry. So what you're saying is that over the last year, 20% less dentistry done. So 20% less filling materials bought and everything else. Is that what, am I understanding that correctly?
If it was only the supply side of it, yes. I don't think it was necessarily just supplies. Let me pull this up and look through it again. They're saying that their whole company went down 9% from their net revenue, and then their losses went down net losses went down about 20%. So it says net consumables only went down 8.7%. So the consumables are the supply side. And so that one went down a lot smaller compared to the technology and equipment, which went down 10%. Right. And that makes sense. I mean, because it's the technology that people aren't going to buy if you are about to head into an unknown financial situation.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. Yeah. And I'm looking at Invisalign's numbers now, because I think that's a good indicator as well. It's just like, are people buying more Invisalign or less Invisalign? And their numbers are down as well. They have a 10% Q2 of 2022 compared to Q2 of 2021. They dropped by 10%. Net revenue by 4%.
Yeah, so that will be interesting to see how it affects it. I mean, obviously, you're seeing these big, giant layoffs from the tech industry. I always wondered, because obviously those are such big headlines that it can't. Even my wife, like, she was nervous about it, and we're not involved in tech at all, right? And so it's just interesting to see how much those can impact the rest of the economy with that kind of information.
Yeah, and they're forecasting way into the future, right? So they're forecasting into next year, and they're looking at things in a totally different light than dental would be responding to. But yeah, no, 100%. Next year is going to be messy. I don't think there's any way around it at this point. With interest rates as high as they are, the Fed has come out and said we are going to slow down the economy because we can deal with recession, and we can deal with layoffs, and we have tools to deal with that. but we don't have tools to deal with runaway inflation. And we don't have any cool toolkit for that. So they had to stop it. And you stop that by just slowing down the flow of money. That's basically what they're doing.
And the good thing is, though, the last report of the inflation was a lot better than expected. So that was a good sign. I mean, I don't know if
what was the gap on it? I didn't see it.
I didn't end up seeing the gap either. I just remember just kind of watching it and seeing it happen, and then seeing how it ended up impacting the stock market. So that was interesting.
Okay, so I got another one, and this kind of ties into more the employment side of things. So I saw somebody post this on Facebook, and it was a dental assistant that posted this on Facebook, and I'm going to read it to you, and I want to get your thoughts on it. And then there was about 60, 70 comments on this. So I want you to guess how people responded to it. So let me read it to you. Okay, it's a little bit longer, so bear with me here. So just need to vent. Why is it so hard to find the right dental office to work in? It shouldn't be so difficult. Maybe I have too high of expectations. I'm an RDA with expanded function. I'm good at what I do. I'm very thorough and detailed. I get along with coworkers. I always find something to do when I'm not working on patients. Stock rooms, look for lab cases, etc. Clean and organized, make sure instruments are all caught up. I'm so frustrated and so burnt out from all the negativity and lack of teamwork and rude dentists. It's frustrating to work with people who don't care and don't have the same work ethic. I just don't get it. My thought has always been work together. Have each other's backs, be a team, do the right thing. I want the office to succeed. The more successful the office is, the more benefits the staff will get. Or at least this is how I think it should be. Am I crazy to think this? And it's not just coworkers. I'm having an employer being rude and disrespectful to the lack of proper management. Why? Why do some dentists let some staff get away with lack of for slacking off? Nothing said to them. I'm so frustrated that I no longer want to work in this field. It's one thing or another. It's really that hard to do the right thing. It's so hard. Is it so hard for an employer to recognize and say, thank you? You did a great job. I appreciate all that you've done. I'm not saying this is in every office. I have had some amazing employers. I have worked with some great associates, but in the past year, it's been horrible. It's either the staff or is unreliable or the owner dentist is just toxic. Can someone please tell me if I'm expecting too much?
So first, before we go into the content of that, Gary, I just want to point out that you should never go into an audiobook narration job.
No, absolutely not.
That was not your skill set.
No,
but that was a very interesting post. So what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on it? Well, first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to know how is everybody going to respond to this? Because this was in a dental feed. So our dentist going to roast her, you know what I mean? And be like, kind of confirm her notion, or are they going to let her off the hook? And how are they going to let her off the hook? Right. And say, no, it's not you, it's them or whatever. Right. So what do you think happened in the post?
I imagine that there's always going to be the bipolar of those. It's going to be the people that experience the same thing are going to jump in and say, yeah, I feel the exact same way, blah, blah, blah. And then it's the person that's going to felt attacked because they're the owner or the one that is exhibiting the bad behavior of, oh, I'm not looking past it. It's your fault. Right. And so as you're sitting there reading about that, I'm thinking about it and saying, like, there's always room for internal perspective changes. And so I guess I immediately kind of my gut reaction jumped into defending the employer or the owner. Right. And so I think that it's just going to be an absolute crapshoot because of who's going to respond to it. And is that what happened?
So the overwhelming response was it's because dentists are scared to lose people. So they let stuff slide and they've just kind of let whatever happened go in the offices because they're just scared to lose everybody. And the way and this was like overwhelming. This was well over 60% of the responses was you have A, B, and C players. You can't lose anyone. So you kind of let the C players slide with whatever they're underperforming on. You don't say anything about it because you can't afford to lose anybody. And then that impacts the A players. And then the offices end up losing these A players like this person. And it's just this vicious cycle, which I was like, ooh, I didn't think of that. I didn't think of that perception.
Which I think is very valid. I mean, as a business owner, there are times where I've been afraid to let a really good performer go just because of the fact that like I don't like sure they might be a B player, but they're not A. I know that, but I still can't guarantee that I will get an A player in there.
Well, not only that, but that you don't even say any, like, so imagine you're a dentist now. So she was directly referring to dentists that she was working with, right? So imagine you're a dentist and you can't find a hygienist right now, or you can't find a dental assistant right now. And you have people who are like grossly underperforming and you just don't say anything because, hey, it's how are we going to replace this person? And then this is how your top performers feel.
What's interesting though is that we've had B player dental assistants drive away A player dentists. And that was been very painful.
Tell me about that. Like, what does that feel like and look like?
An A player dentist always wants growth of themselves, right? They're in there constantly trying to learn and develop themselves, trying to implement processes within their own, like that they can within their own sphere of influence. And so they'll go in and they'll have a dental assistant, which by the rest of the organization is they're an okay dental assistant, right? They're not a C player. We know that they're not a C player, but we know that they're not an A player. They've been doing the same thing for 20 years. They like what they've been doing, and they're decently good at the repetition of what they do. But when you get an A player coming in here and trying to take it to the next level, that requires growth that sometimes that B player is not willing to put in. So that growth then ends up influencing that dentist where they can't get to that A degree that they feel comfortable with, and they end up leaving.
So it goes back to the initial topic that we opened up with, is that a good leader is going to make you feel uncomfortable because they're pushing you to grow.
But in this situation though, the dentist was an associate and the dental assistant had been there forever and had like everyone's back, right? So what happened was the associate wasn't actually a manager, right? Like, yes, he had influence over this dental assistant, but if he came down into it and said, hey, I want to let this dental assistant go or hire a new dental assistant, he didn't have that call.
Got it. So, but did the dental assistant not want to grow along with them? Was that the problem?
Yeah, there was just like a change in the systems that they had been used to or gotten comfortable in. And yes, they probably was being made uncomfortable, but that dentist wasn't directly over this dental assistant, right? Like it wasn't that type of relationship.
I get that. Yeah. I get that. So the dentist left. Rather, what was the dentist's other options? What were their other go-to options to try to fix it outside of leaving?
I think it was honestly, as I look back on it, I think it was a bigger cultural issue, where it wasn't like this person who had ambitions to do more. We as an organization should have supported them to do more. But instead we said, okay, this person, we know that they're good at what they do. They should be able to help you. And when they didn't have another route to go to. They didn't have anyone else to turn to. They didn't have clinical leadership that was constantly there, kind of available to them to help them grow and such. And so their alternative was, I know that I can get a job in a million other places, so I'm going to go there.
Yikes. That's a tough situation to be in, because so just going back to the comment that we just read and then the conclusion that people were drawing from that, it is a tough position to be in as a leader. And the only answer, if someone came to me with this problem and said, hey, look, I have this dental office and I have A, B, and C players and my C players are underperforming. What do I do? And I can't hire anybody, right? I can't find anybody to bring into the job. My answer would be go back, time travel 5 years back, start building an amazing culture. So that way people want to work there and make it so that everybody loves being there. So when people leave, it's very easy to find people, but that's hard. That's impossible to do, right? You can't do that, but that's the answer. And this is why people often harp on culture, but this is why, because it solves some of these complex problems that you can't solve with, just by throwing money or bodies at it. And but a question for you. So do you think the recession is going to offset some of this, though, where people are kind of scared to then quit and leave their job? Like this person who left the comment, they start seeing everybody getting laid off. The dental industry starts to shrink a little bit, and then people kind of stay where they're at.
If it were up to my gut, I think that yes. I think that there is, during a time of contraction in an industry, there will always be less moving of positions, right? Of people moving different companies. And so, yeah, I think as an employee, you're going to be willing to put up with more crap because you're nervous about switching yourselves.
Yeah, but then when there's times, because so we're moving. So I think what's happening, and I haven't heard anybody else talk about this. I think we're moving from because prior to COVID, it was an employer market, right? Remember that? It was an employer market, and it was just like, the employer sets the table. Then COVID caused us to move to an employee market where it was the employees were setting the tone, and they were the ones setting
Right.
the rate of how we're hiring people and how much we're paying them and those kind of things. And now we're going to be moving back into an employer market where the employers are going to have more control. Do you think that's accurate?
I think that's totally fair. I look at it from obviously I follow a lot of tech and dental. And so I reflect back on the developer space in tech, right? Developers were always kind of the hot item. You had to get the best of the best. And so it was a very competitive market. And now, obviously, there's been hundreds of thousands of people laid off in that sector, that it becomes a very much of an employer market where they can kind of control and set the what's acceptable and not acceptable within those realms. And I think that's very much, yes, I think dental is following that. So we are shifting back now to an employer market.
Interesting. Yep, right. Because we always, when we're in a situation, we're like, "How is this going to be fixed? There's no end to this, and we're so stuck." And then overnight, one thing happens, and one thing triggers another, and it's like, "Oh no, it's shifting. Now it's all going to change back the other way. The pendulum is going to swing, and it'll swing back the other way again." That's just the way.
My favorite part of employer markets, though, is that's when the most creative startups begin. Is because there's not a demand for their services. And so they just go out and build stuff that they wanted to build to begin with, that they were so consumed about. So I am really excited about that in the next year or two. And I think that for dental assistants, it's the same thing. I think that you see an increase of social interaction and exposure and just thought leadership coming out of these recessions.
100%. That's how it works. Yeah. The downturns create opportunity that wouldn't exist otherwise. And a lot of that has to do with the big companies during the heydays. Like, as an example, when COVID hit, or when the bad thing in 2021 hit, we can't say that word. All the algorithms mess up. So when the bad thing in 2021 hit, all the money, where did all the money flow? It went up to all the big businesses because they were already in place. So it went to Amazon, it went to, all Costco's and those kind of businesses. But when the downturn shifted a little bit, what it did is that it created a ton of opportunities for other businesses to come out of the woodwork that would have never had an opportunity before. And so I agree with you. Downturns are horrible. I don't like people being scared. I don't like people being hurt, but it creates so much new opportunity. And if you go back and look at all the businesses that were started over the history of America, a lot of the biggest businesses were started in recessions or depressions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah,
cool. You got any other topics?
Nope. I think that was a good one, though. I love talking about kind of where things are going. I'm curious, have you been following this whole Twitter thing from a social media perspective? I wanted to ask you about this whole Elon Twitter scandal. What are your thoughts on it?
Which one? The blue mark thing? There's so many of them.
The whole blue mark thing. The blue mark thing is the one that I'm talking about.
Yeah, so the blue mark. So yeah, that was very interesting that he said, yeah, we'll just give anybody a blue mark. And then everybody started creating for $8 these parody accounts, and started, it caused stocks to fall and people to be fired and all these crazy things. Yeah, he canceled it. That's part of being an entrepreneur, is that you go out and you try things, and some of them fail miserably. And I'm still waiting on my Tesla truck, my Cybertruck. So that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Yeah. I just feel bad for the people in Twitter that saw that coming before it actually happened and had no voice.
Yeah, well, they laid off half of their team. They said that they quit, but I think Twitter, he went in there and basically hacked half the company.
You saw the article where he invited a lot of them to come back too, because they realized he couldn't run the business without them.
Fun times. Yeah, that's what happens when you're an entrepreneur and you overtake. I mean, could you imagine if I gave you billions of dollars and you were able to actually go out and start a business like this? Oh, here's a really cool thing. He was short, so he didn't want to sell any more of his Tesla stock, because that's where most of his wealth is. It's tied up in stock. Like Elon doesn't have tons of cash like that, right? So he needed $44 billion to get this Twitter deal off the ground. So he started texting people, and he started texting some of his friends. And one of his friends said, "I'll give you $1 billion." What's his name from Oracle? And he said, "I'll give you $1 billion." And he was like, "All right, that's cool, but if I was you, I would do 2 billion." And he said, "All right, if you're asking for 2, I'll give you 2." And I just find it so comical that you can text people and just let me get $1 billion, right? Like, that's crazy to me.
No, yes, I agree. When you get to some of these levels of how people invest, it's just absolutely like mind blowing how they'd be willing to throw it around. But like behind the scenes, the amount of like effort and thoughts and due diligence and just like their legal and account, like the financial things going on in the back end that we don't see. It just seems like, oh yeah, we'll just throw around $1 billion, but those guys know how to button things up for sure to get themselves covered.
Interesting stuff. All right, Tanner. Well, this is a good one. You have a great day. Make sure you like, subscribe. If you're a psychopath and you listen to this whole thing, you are officially knighted as a dental nerd. Thanks so much for tuning in.
All right. Talk to you soon.